Let's do this. I'm fucking excited, dude. So
Glad to be a part of your excitement.
yeah, dude. So ever since I started this podcast, right? Um, I've always imagined us doing one together,
Mm-hmm.
just because you're my best friend, and I don't know. A lot of the reasons why I am the way I am, it's also
Mhm.
because at some point in my life you influenced me,
Mm-hmm.
and you became a person that I admired and respected, as well as I care for you. I care for you a lot. That we've been best friends for like what,
What is
4 or 5 years, 6, 7. I don't even
No,
know.
it's been like
It's
8 or something
yeah,
at
it's
this
been
point.
it's been a long time. It's actually pretty incredulous that it's been so long since
Yeah.
I met you. All right, so Cody Fallico, ladies and gentlemen, I have him in the house. Cody, you want to just give a brief intro of whatever you want to say?
Sure. I mean, I know you want to know a little bit about me, which is hard to define, of course, for anyone. Um, who am I? Gabo asks. When I think of who I am to myself, I always have to sit and sort of ponder. And I don't know, who is it that I want to be? Who is it that I think I am? Who is it that everyone else thinks I am? What is it? What is it that truly makes me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you ask this question, I go to myself and be like, I think to myself, I feel like there's so many sort of, I don't want to say regrets by any means. I am where I am because I've done what I've done, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I am here where I am. But there's always some things about me that are always like fighting within myself, try to make
Struggles,
myself
yeah.
better in
Inner-
some form, right?
Yes, inner struggles that help you almost like level up, right?
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with answering some of those questions. Like, if you say you who you are is defined by your experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go back to your upbringing. Where are you from?
I'm from a suburb of Chicago called Park Ridge. I grew up there ever since I was born up until I was probably I was 19, 20 when I met Gabo at the university. We went to the same university, and that's where I grew up is Park Ridge, but I feel that my entire life has brought me everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can't say I'm just from one place. People ask me, where am I from? Oh, I'm from here. Yes. Objectively, yes, absolutely. Born and raised from Chicagoland area. But if I have to define who I am, it's hard for me to say I'm from any one place.
Okay. So you're saying you have connections to a lot of different places
Exactly.
while you grew up.
Exactly.
Like, which of these places are the most important? Would you say Chicago and
Chicago, absolutely.
Chicago, meaning the area around Chicago where you grew up, which is Park Ridge,
Correct.
Suburbs. Okay.
I would also say, because especially if people ask me, oh, where are you from? And if I say I'm from Chicago to a Chicagoan, then that's like, whoa, you're not from Chicago, dude. You're from the suburbs.
People, it opens up the people will judge you.
Yeah, so depending on who asks, I will change my answer, responding on it.
Okay.
Someone completely outside the country, I'll say, yes, Chicago. I'm not going to say, I'm from a suburb of Chicago and get specific.
Right, of course. So what was it like growing up in the Chicago suburbs? Like, how many you have? I know you, so I can say that you have you're in a family of 5 brothers and sisters, and so the small family is seven people. So to me, that's a big family.
That's a big family.
It's a big family. So tell me a little bit. What was it like growing up with your brother and sister? Where are you in the lineup?
In the lineup,
and what do you think, like, these relationships that you build with your brother and sister, how are they important to you?
Right. So I have 4 other brother and sisters, siblings, and it's really funny because my parents are really like machines in terms of how they had the kids, right? So it's literally like a machine in the sense that every other year a child is born, and each time it changes gender. So the first kid was a girl, then 2 years later a boy, then 2 years later another girl, 2 years later another boy, 2 years later the last girl. So it's just bam, 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 bam. I'm glad my parents did it the way they did. I don't know why they did, if they planned it for whatever reason, but something really good about us being all pretty close in age is that we've all connected, played with each other, all spent a lot of closer time with each other, as opposed to someone that maybe is as a sibling that's 10 years older. It's a much different sort of aspect, the way you treat someone based on that difference of age.
The dynamic changes a lot. I mean, my brother, I can say from my experience that me and my sister had a lot more time together, and we had a lot more we were more sympathetic to each other just because we were close together. Even though my sister's 4 years apart, but my brother's
still
8 years apart.
Closer.
My brother's 8 years apart, and I saw him more like as was more like my guardian angel.
Exactly. Exactly.
So yeah, there's definitely a different relationship, but within the scope of your family, there's also, I think, like each of you have different personalities, right? Like even though you grow close together, there's definitely like things that separate you. What do you think? Like, tell me about a story or something that you think like how your siblings would look at you.
Would look at me.
Like things that I've heard when I'm at your house is kind of like, oh, just Cody just wanted to play by himself, like with his toys. He didn't give a fuck about anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody.
So I mean, that's if you want to pay attention to that, which is actually really funny, because a lot of the way that I even like played as a kid is today how I kind of play as well. In a lot of ways, but also different in many. So I enjoyed playing and spending time with my siblings. My siblings didn't always like to do the same thing I like to do, right? But often I would be, maybe setting up guys or playing with army guys, or doing something where I'm setting up a bunch of war, right? Just like
a war scenario.
Yeah, a scenario. And what I would do is I would set up the scenario, but then I wouldn't even play it yet. I left it, and this takes like a lot of patience and like discipline to be able to do this. But It's like, all right, I set everything up. No one touch everything I just put here, and I would leave it for like 3 days, and then come back, play it all day in my mind, see it, and be like, okay, that's gonna happen. This is gonna happen. And then on the third day I come back and then I play through it.
I see.
And then it's a reset of a whole new scene and
right. So when you had this entire scenario planned in your head like perfectly, and then when your siblings came and wanted to play with you, you're like, fuck that, dude. No, we're doing
like,
this.
No, leave me alone. Cody, you gotta eat. Cody, come get something. Oh, you gotta do this. And I would not respond, totally just be in my own zone, not listen to anyone. Sometimes my mom would just come by and just leave a sandwich next to me. Wouldn't say anything. Come there and just like leave something by, and just hope that I would just snack on it as I'm playing.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I mean, even though you had your siblings very close to you, you also preferred to play like in your head.
I liked a lot. Yeah, exactly. I played a lot in my own head. And I would like to do things. Of course, like anyone else, say I'd like to do things my way, right? And so, everyone's a victim with their siblings, but of course I would make my sisters do stuff that they didn't want to do, or like would be miserable and complaining the whole time. But we're just like, oh, play this. You have to do this. No, you have to do this in order to play this right. You don't know how to play with guys? Come on.
And like who? So when I go to your house, and it's always. Like, I think that your dad is like a character. Like,
100%.
Like, I don't even know how to describe him, but I know he has a very strong personality, and that he definitely has had a strong influence in all your guys' life when you're growing up. Can you describe a little bit, like, what was it like growing up with your dad? And, like, was it nice? Like, was he an asshole? Was it good? Like, did you gain something out of it? Like, did he teach you a lot of lessons that you think right now you're like, oh, that's why he said that, or that's why he did that?
Honestly, most of the beneficial things or the positive things you see much later after the fact, right?
Right, of course.
Which I think he understood, as a being, and I love him right now the way he is, and everything he's done for us, and the way he's raised us. At the same time, when I was younger, I couldn't have hated him more than anyone else in the world, Like, he was my sworn enemy. And I think like later in life, you know, once you step back, much later, sadly, it takes us a long time to figure
Why
things
was
out.
he your sworn enemy?
It was more so when I was in. Well, I guess let's start when I'm young. When I'm young, he's not. He wasn't around. He was working 3 jobs, 4 jobs. Would come home at like 9 at night, you know, and just like he's less. He's really like something I admire him for. He's just a very like selfless being. Like he's just out there always working to provide for us, right? Never for him. He would get $5 a day to spend on lunch or whatever, and that's all money he would spend. You know, it's not like he would take any money, buy his own toys and stuff. You know, only things that were bought were for us. Later in my teenage years, well, it changes things because when I was in high school, he was my Spanish teacher. He was my wrestling coach, right? So
Right.
throughout high school, he was always in my face. It's hard. And, you know, living with someone in general, you find now is like, it's really hard, especially when they're in your face all the time. So it was really good in the sense that he was able to sort of coach me and teach me in life, still being around me, which is beneficial.
Right.
But at the same time, almost never in a home environment, but would still be obviously treated. I'm still his son, you know. He'd always
Right.
look at me as his son.
I mean, I can imagine that you must have felt a lot of pressure just because you see him at home and you have to behave a certain way. You see him at school and you're an extension of him as well. So he is probably on your ass about like being, you know, a respectable person and and the image that you have in school. So, and that's something that not everybody goes through when they go through high school, which is like, you know, be very aware of how people look at you and what the things that you're doing.
Right.
So, I mean, definitely.
I could give you a couple of stories based off of that. One is, well, so yes, I definitely had a lot of pressure from my dad being there, but at the same time, I was very anti-establishment, very rebellious, very like, I'm not, you say something, I don't care if you're right, I'm going to do the opposite, you know?
Okay.
So even just out of spite, you know, just because. So I could imagine that being very frustrating. I don't want to even know what my kids are going to be like, you know? But one story I would say is, well, he was my Spanish teacher for a year. I had my cousin in the class, and one of the lessons was we were doing like as many as much as, and my cousin was in the class, and I said, okay, my cousin has as many friends as a dog. You know, I would just say funny things that are correct, but obviously not nice, but not a big deal. But my dad would come up to me in the middle of class and start choking me out. Start putting me in a wrestling hold. Yeah, in the middle of class.
Oh my God.
And something about him in terms of like his discipline. I was not big on homework, right? I was more of like a test taker. I wouldn't be like, this homework, screw this homework, because I'm too good for it or whatever it is. You know, I don't want to waste my time on this. Yeah. And when I would do that, what was stupid of me is to do it in Spanish class with my dad, of all places. You know, I couldn't do it in any other class. I had to do it right there in front of his face, you know. And of course, he's walking around collecting homework and Spanish homework. I mean, I was good at it, so it's like, it's very easy. And I was just like, I don't want to spend it. It takes 5 minutes. There's no reason to do it, whatever. Or I would just forget about it and say, whatever.
Right.
Walk into class. Everyone takes out their paper. I don't take mine out. I was a pretty honest person in general, so I'd be like, yeah, I don't have it. You know, I just didn't do it. He walk around. He goes, okay, all right, everyone got their homework. All right. He's like, where's your homework? I was like, I didn't do it. Okay. He walks around. He does another lap around the desk. Comes back and he's like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? And I go, nothing. He's like, that's right.
Right, in front of all the whole class.
Yeah.
And how did it make you feel? Like these? Like,
I knew it was coming. You know, I know in my mind I'd be like, shit, I fucked up. Like, I just sit here and take it. I just gotta take it like a man.
Yeah, but that's one of the things that I really admire about you. Like, you've always been brutally honest, and whether it's with yourself or with you know, with somebody else, you never try to like hide like something that you know is gonna come out later, or it's just
Right.
like it's
Well, I might as well deal with it
Yeah,
now
right.
since I'm gonna have to deal with
Exactly.
it later. It might even be worse, so I might as well take care of it now.
which is very admirable, I think, because if you actually learn this value when you're growing up, I think it's something that could help you in life. Just honesty in general. I think just to go back a little bit to one of the books I was reading, from Jordan Peterson, the 12 rules of life, like the 12 golden rules of life. One of them is tell the truth, or more exactly, don't lie.
Right, right.
At you, that one of the things that I think it's one of the aspects that I admired about you was like, damn, this guy's like just brutally honest,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give a shit about it.
Yeah.
It's like you could have farted in the middle of class and been like, it was me.
Yeah.
and then nobody gives a shit because you're not lying.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, God damn it, we have to deal with this shit, and then that's it. Like, and there's no embarrassment either, like when somebody finds out, or whatever. There's also another thing that I actually wanted to talk about, because you were also kind of forced to wrestle in high school, weren't you? Like, you didn't want to do it.
Right.
How did that make you feel, and like what do you think manifested because of it?
Okay, interesting. So, yeah, I did sports all the time. It was something that was forced upon me, which I'm very happy of. Is that always be doing a sport, like always into something. I was a very energetic kid, very energetic person. Always had to let out all this energy, otherwise I come home with it and annoy everyone. So, being in wrestling, like I liked it at first, because I was a boy. I got to exert my energy. I got to beat people up, legally. So it was good. It was necessary. Then though, if I like, let's say I went through a crisis and I quit when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. I want to try something else.
You were like,
joined basketball for a year and got kicked out of every game. So I was like, yeah, obviously I can't do that because it's not enough. It's not satisfying my physical urges, right?
So you tried something else, and then you didn't.
Yeah,
it didn't suit you.
Yeah, it didn't suit me. So so I went back to it. Something great about it is that once you did these wrestling practices, once you went through wrestling training, it's not a game. Okay, wrestling's not a game. It's not a thing you play, right? You don't play wrestling. You wrestle. And it's nothing that's makes you like happy. Let's say it's nothing happy and fun. It's rewarding. Right?
Okay, right.
It's very just like you put so much effort, so much time, you put like all of your energy. You don't know what it's like to use all of your energy, every single muscle constantly until you do wrestling, and you're in the match for like 30 seconds and you're already dying, and you still got 5 minutes to go.
Right.
It's just brutal and exhausting in every way. But something that was probably the issue of me being forced into it is that I had a lot of aggression and like emotion because of it. Like every time I went into a match, I felt like this person wants to fight me. This person wants to beat me. Like, how dare that person? It was more like a much more vicious, like gladiator. Like, this is do or die. Like, if I don't fight for my life right now, then it's over. And I honestly would throw up sometimes before matches because I'd get that nervous, anxious feeling inside of me, So it was tough. It was definitely taxing,
So you had to put yourself in this mindset that you didn't really like about yourself, kind of like, oh, I'm like, forget about who Cody is. I need to like fuck this dude
it's not
up.
It's not that it wasn't who I am. I mean, that is part of me, whether I want to admit it or not, That aggression, that viciousness, that maliciousness is me, but it's a part that I don't like about myself, right? It's like whenever I was like that, I couldn't feel more of like a douchebag or more of an asshole than any other time in life,
Right.
Why am I being so evil, so
vicious?
Yeah,
as you said.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was disturbing for me,
Right, but at the same time, do you think that stemmed from your dad forcing you to?
Right. That's I don't want to blame other things,
No,
right?
of course,
It's not his fault by any means. But yeah, it's definitely, it's like an animal being backed into a corner. Like, I have to do this. I have to fight and get out of this. You know?
Right.
And part of my family business, my dad's the coach. My brother was like the best wrestler at the school. So like it's in my name. My name is me having to wrestle.
Also, yeah, but that also must have been a huge like pressure, like to perform. You know, being like, I'm a Fallico, like my brother's like the best wrestler in this town
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. You know, like you going into it, you that's why you went to. I feel like that's why you went so extreme and
Mhm.
say like, oh, this is. I have to fuck this dude up.
Right. Yeah. I have to do this to bring honor to my family, you know, or something like that.
Maybe like some primal shit like
yeah,
that. but
exactly. It's very
of course,
primal.
of course. When it came time to decide, you finished high school. When it came time to decide what you wanted to do for living, for school, going to school, like what was going through your head?
Obviously, initially, like, I was very athletic, so I was like, is sports an option? You know, I think to myself, like, do I want to continue doing sports? First of all, wrestling, I didn't like. So I'm not going to do that at a higher level that's more intense. So I'm like,
Right.
I'm definitely done with that. You know, in my last regionals and sectionals, the last tournaments before the end of the year, I lost to guys I should have beat on purpose, you know. And it was obvious to my dad, my brother. They're like, he doesn't want to do this. He's never been known to do something he doesn't want to do. So just let it be, and that's his last match, you know, and that's what he wants. So I was like, definitely not wrestling. Football maybe, because I loved football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Football was a lot more fun, but the games were fun. The games were actually fun, right? The part that sucked was the training for it, the practice. And my school is very big on football. Like the school makes a lot of money because of the football team.
Mm-hmm.
And in that sense, it was very grueling as well. Like that we would have to train before and after school, you know, for hours. Then we'd come in 5 a.m. to watch as defensive backs. We all sit in a room and watch the other team, all the other receivers learn how they play and stuff.
Like professionals.
Yeah, in high school. And I'm by the time I'm done, I'm like, I don't want to do that. That's not even college yet. It's got to be worse than that in college, right?
Right.
And so in my mind, I'm like, well, what do I care more about in my life, right? Do I care more about how athletic I am? Is that really what I care about more, or do I care more about what am I doing with my brain, with myself?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how can I can better the world in other ways? You know, I think that's where it stemmed from, is this idea of sort of like helping others or doing a service or helping someone else. And to me, that wasn't done through athletics for me, even though, you know, athletics makes money, people go and see it, you know, it's an activity, it's a spectacle, but to me it wasn't as valued in my mind. My mind was much more powerful and important.
So you landed in architecture, basically.
Yeah, for some reason in high school I took one architecture class and I was just like instantly like, I'm gonna do architecture, you know.
Okay.
It's what I want to do. I don't know why. Decision. No, it was a split second, no thinking necessary, and it was very just like easy for me. It's like, yeah, that's what I want, you know.
Yeah. I
think it was because of all the ideas that architecture has. It's not a single thing, you know. There's like so much breadth to what architecture is.
Right.
That has really led me
really
to
could
enjoying
be a lot of things, and it sounds cool too, like architecture.
Yeah.
You know, whenever
just I guess segue into like being at IIT and the university and what it's done for us and how it's shaped me is that going into school, my favorite thing was like, whoa, there's this amazing tool shop where I can literally think of anything I could ever want to build and I could do it right there. Like anything in your mind,
shop,
you have all
metals,
the tools. Yeah. Laser cutters, 3D printers, you know, sandblasting, to all kinds of tools to create furniture and anything, you know, construction in any form.
Yeah, that's definitely something really cool. And I think that really speaks to you as a person. Or maybe to your abilities, right?
More to my abilities, for sure.
The skills that you have. Tell me, like, what do you like? So you liked a lot building things in the wood shop, with working with wood, working with metal to build things that are
like objects that are functional. Like in my mind, the reason I like the physicality, you know, the physical building of objects, is that it left an actual piece. It was more rewarding in the end for me, instead of doing like a drawing and printing it out. It's like a piece of paper is less valuable to me, right? When I have an object that I built and constructed, I feel much more. It's much more fulfilling to me. I see I see
tangible.
it.
Yeah.
You know, I could touch it. I could look at it. You know, when you do an architecture project and you have a good model, like, no one looks at the drawings. They're like, oh, cool, we got this model. Especially people not in it. People have a hard time looking at drawings a lot of times, you know.
Right.
And they'd be like, oh, cool, now we can have a real conversation. Oh, what is this room here? And, like, they can get very specific on what's going on. You know, you're looking at a Dollhouse. You can play with it, you know.
Right.
Just, yeah, very, very, very tangible.
It was much more like a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I liked it a lot. It was very playful.
Also, let's just emphasize the fact that you're a person that does not like really connect with technology yet. Like, you're not the typical millennial that's like, you know, that can I don't know, like, code anything on their phone and, like, you know.
No, yeah, I'm far from that. Yeah, very far. And I think you've touched upon this point before, but I think in a lot of ways I'm a very old soul in the sense, like, I could come across a problem on the computer and be like, oh, fuck this. Computers don't like me. You know, computers they just never would do what I want. And then there's been so many issues, and Gabo can attest to it. But
So you don't like to use these computers, but now, so you find yourself, leaning towards a builder's job, right?
Uh-huh.
And within this, you also find the flexibility because, like, something about traveling and getting to know other places is important to you as well, right? So because when you came out of school, like, what are you thinking? You know, you're not thinking, oh, I want to get a job, I want to do this. What are you thinking?
Directly out of school, what am I thinking? How can I work less and still be able to do exactly what I want to do, even though I don't know what I want to do, you know? But right now I'm into more like sort of carpenter. I wouldn't call myself a carpenter. I never like studied carpentry, but I've been through many places. My first job out of school was working with reclaimed barn wood in the city and making interior furniture and stuff like that. Within the, you know, the residential and commercial areas of Chicago. Immediately out of that, well, you know, I'm kind of
hold on. Let me talk about that for a second.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about this job? Like, you got it. Is it something that you're like, yeah, I can do this. I can do this for, like,
yeah.
You know,
Well,
whatever.
I think the thing I liked about it most initially going into it was that it's a shop, right? So I was like, oh, cool, shop. I'm familiar with all these tools. I know how to use all these things. These are definitely like skills right up my alley, like I can use and perform well and do well. And on top of it, I was helping sort of increase clientele and working with people, clients. They come in, oh, I want to refurbish this table. I want a new thing. I want reclaimed barwood in the center, you know, whatever.
So you're good at it. You're good at it from school, and I can attest to that just because, like, for example, one of the first projects that we had, like the chair,
the chair. Oh, nice,
Yeah,
the chair.
yeah.
I still have that chair in my room.
Yeah, so, like, we're supposed to make a chair out of cardboard, and all of our architecture students, like, you know, freaking out because, like, the professor's supposed to sit in it when you're done with it, and, like, and everybody, you know, like, we're all coming up with, like, a cool design, but you somehow figured out, I don't know, your mind, just the way it works, just to make a chair that's very functional and very stable, and, you know,
just very practical. It's just
super.
like, oh,
yeah, and in a way, that's kind of architecture. It's supposed to be very wholesome, and it's supposed to be understand all different perspectives. And that chair, I remember one of the stories about it was that you called our professor, or your
it was Pettigrew.
Pettigrew called you or something. He's like,
no, yeah, I called him. I was like, hey, am I supposed to glue this thing together, or can I just leave it dry fit? And he goes, what?
Yeah, so, like, dry fit, meaning, like, using no glue whatsoever.
Correct, yeah.
A chair made out of cardboard just, like, stood by itself, and he's like, and our professor's like, wait, you did this? Like,
yeah.
You know, super surprised at your skills and abilities.
And then he said, hold on, I have to see this. So he comes in the morning and be like, wow, did you actually execute this? This is good. And I stupidly, but I did it and it worked, but I put it on the train that day. and sat on it while on the train, which is like one of the dumbest things because of all the movement of the train wiggling back and forth on these cardboard legs, you know.
Right.
I just like, oh, everyone's standing up. I guess I'll just place my chair here and I'll just sit down on it.
You were so proud of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have something about building that's you're very skilled at it, and maybe I don't know. Are you aware of this, or do you think like I'm just talent? I just do it, you know?
I think it's more like that, honestly. It's not like, oh, I notice I'm good at it, or it's more like I like this, you know. So I like to do it. I want to do it. I feel good doing it, and when I complete it, I'm more often than not as satisfied because you know how architecture school is, how architecture in general is. You never finish a project, right? You're working on something and you could work on it for your entire life and never be complete. You know, that's just the way it is. Like,
it's so weird. I feel there's something completely wrong with that, but
I know, right? It's like, oh, hey, the job in architecture is to find a problem with something that doesn't have a problem, and then make a solution for it.
And charge you money for it.
Yeah. So it's very cool in that aspect, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start talking about like you traveling though, because I think that's an important aspect of when like why you lived. Like, describe your life, because it's not like you went fully head on into this builder's job.
No.
You're like kind of in the middle of it. You know, you're like one foot in one side and one foot on the other. Like,
exactly.
You don't know exactly what you're doing. You're testing things out.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, tell us about it.
Okay. Number one, I don't know what I want to do, you know. I mean, there's some part of me that still doesn't know. But I suppose that's part of life. But coming right out of college, I had that job with the reclaimed barnwood. But the problem is that me being me, very rebellious and sort of anti-establishment or just
following not
screw
what
you,
the
you tell me to do
society-
this, I'm not going to do it, you know, for better or for worse.
Right.
And I had this one horrible boss. We got paid like complete garbage, like minimum pay. And the boss ended up coming up to me and asking me, he goes, or he ends up telling me one day, they're like, oh, hey, we're going to give you a raise next week. And I'd be like, oh, sweet, good, a raise. Like, I've been increasing clientele. Like, I've been helping projects all by myself. The boss doesn't even see it, you know. People come in, make transactions, complete the project, give it to them. They give me the money, basically. And I was, like, taking care of a lot of stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool, we're going to give you a raise. And he comes and tells me the next week, like, oh, nice, I'm working hard, I'm feeling good. Then ends up giving me, like, a 50-cent pay increase. And I'm like, 50 cents? Is that is that for me to buy an extra meal of pasta every week? Like, what the hell is that? Like, 50 cents. Like, and this boss is going out of his way and buying himself new cars, even though he says he's totally invested in the business. He's buying new stuff for himself. He comes one day and is all like, he's all hungover, and he's like, oh, you know, like coke and strippers and stuff last night. I was like, dude, why the fuck are you here? Get the hell out of here. You know, we don't want to see you crying on the couch like a little baby. And then like, oh, can you guys get me Tylenol and stuff? And it's like, dude, go fuck off. I'm busy doing stuff over here, right?
Right.
For you. Why don't you reciprocate and do
Show
something?
some respect to like your business.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it was just very bad. He treated all of his employees very like poorly and like gave them the minimal amount of money he could, even though for the amount of work everyone was doing was they should have been getting paid way more, you know.
Okay, so you had a like pretty bad experience coming out of school with this terrible business model, and this guy who did not respect his job.
No, and I mean he was good at some things, like finding, you know, the right areas, the businesses where to spend the money, sort of a thing, but just a horrible person,
a horrible boss.
And and for me, like who you are or like how you behave, how you hold yourself is very important to me. And I'd rather work for someone, even if they don't make as much money, I'd rather work for someone that's very respectful to everyone and you know, wants to expose that and use that and have that part of their model, of their business model, right? Like having respect for others, like taking care of each other. Like,
that's a core value of the company as well. Yeah, I understand.
And that was non-existent, right? So one day he comes up to me and he's like, oh, you guys got to move this wood here. You see, you put it here like this, and then you do like this. You know, just being very disrespectful and just like talking like a jerk, right?
Right.
I'm just like, okay, you know, all right, this guy again. Like, why don't you just go stay upstairs, dude? Do your stuff, you know? And he goes, and he goes, oh, what's your little problem? And I go, oh, nothing. You know, we're all just underpaid and underappreciated. That's all. And he goes, okay. And then he like walks away and goes look for my check. He comes back. He's like, hey, you got your check already? He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, then what are you complaining about money? I was like, because the check is nothing for what it should be, you know? And you don't treat anyone with respect here. Then he goes, oh, boy, you got no respect, boy. And I'm just like totally being a fucking asshole hypocrite, you know? And I just turn around to my buddy who's in there, and I'm just like, my blood is boiling, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, all my wrestling viciousness is coming out to me, and I'm like, you know, like, oh my gosh, this guy's gonna make me lose my mind. And I've overall in my life, I'm very good at, you know, calming situations down. I've been in 6 different potential fights, and I have stopped every single one of them. Right. You know, so I'm
You're
always
more a peacemaker.
Yes, absolutely.
Than an instigator.
Correct. And I just turn around and be like, okay, just don't say a word. Just let him keep talking. He can just dig himself in a ditch, you know. And he's like, oh, why don't you get the fuck out of here? We'll call you in a week when we need you or something like that. I'm like, okay. And then I just never came back. I left with my buddy, dropped some stuff off, and I was like, yo, bro, I'm not coming back ever. He's like, what? Really? And I was like, yeah, of course not. Did you hear him? Did you hear what he just said?
Right.
Like, the most disrespectful human being. And then that guy ended up quitting later, too, and so did another guy. So it kind of just started this process of, screw you, dude.
Yeah, it's snowballed.
Yeah.
Domino effect.
It just took someone to do it, to push them to be able to have the like confidence or whatever to do it. But I feel bad because one of the guys, he needed the money. You know, he was going through stuff, and like he needed the money, and he was there longer than anyone and whatever. And I'm sure he stayed there and he got paid less and got treated like garbage. You know, and so part of me feels like bad for the situation because he would after I told him we're all underpaid, underappreciated, he goes and yells at one of his other employees and he goes, hey, are you complaining to Cody about the pay or whatever? And he's like, no, of course not. I was like, he's not going to say that to you. That's the reason I'm saying it to you right now, because I know how they feel and they just don't want to say it to you. So I'm going to say it to you, you know? And then he goes over there, yells at him, and I'm like, hey, your problem is not with him. It's with me. Don't talk to him. Talk to me, you know? I was like, right. Don't involve him. This is not his fight, you know? And this guy, he's just really childish, really disrespectful, boss, and I was just like, okay, dude, I'm leaving. And in that time, I had a girlfriend, which I guess we can talk about briefly, of me just being like, you know, a lover boy.
Yeah. Well, another aspect of your experimenting what you want to do has been like traveling abroad or like meeting people, meeting girls in particular.
Yeah. But I had an Italian girlfriend at that time, and at that moment it was like, okay, we're not sure what we want to do, so I was like, okay, well, I guess we'll just I'm gonna go live in Italy. Screw it, I don't care, you know. Like, I'm gonna take the like $1,000 I've got in my bank account, and I'm just gonna go to Italy. Fuck it.
Dude, that's fucking hilarious. It's just like everybody's worried about, you know, like everybody has this cloud over their heads. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, I have to fucking find a job now. And Cody's just like, dude, wait, how much money I have in my pocket? Oh, perfect for like $1,000. Perfect for a trip to Italy with my girlfriend. It's like, let me just like go learn Italian. But it's also like, I feel like we make fun of it, but it's also like, do you think, like, were you trying to escape the realities of, like, you trying to find a job, or was it more like, I need to find out who I am?
I have no responsibilities, you know. I don't have a family, don't have kids, don't have any of that. I don't have to worry about it, and my family is well off. Like, I'm fortunate enough to have, like, the awesome family I have, and they all support each other and take care of each other. So I never feel that I wasn't needed, you know. So which allowed me to also to have that idea that, oh, I can leave, you know, not a problem.
Right, but I feel like, yes, it is the timing was the timing was right, but also, like, I feel that another reason why you're like very much not afraid of like going at things, like, this is something that in your personality you can see, because not anybody would say like, oh, I just got fired or whatever from
Mm-hmm.
I'm not working anymore. I don't like let me go to Italy. I don't even know Italian. Like I know some because my parents, but you know it's just a mentality that you're like diving
Mm-hmm.
into the very deep end with no idea what's gonna go down.
Right.
You know.
But something I learned about myself is that I love to learn about myself. Okay. It's kind of weird to say, but by me going to a new place, starting out as a baby, starting with, you know, when I went to when I went to Italy, when I went to Spain, I didn't go with any of my friends, any family, anything. You know, I went by myself, which means I couldn't speak my native tongue, which means I had to learn the other language, or I wouldn't get around and do anything at all. Right? I wouldn't make any friends. You know, I like people. I like talking to people. So for me to just go out there, that's like, oh my gosh. So it honestly made me more confident, more easily be like, oh, I'm a baby. People are going to accept it. You know, I'm just like, hey, I'm going to try to talk to you. Do you mind if I try to talk to you? And people would be like, yeah, sure, dude. You know, like,
yeah.
and you'd be surprised how many people you meet, how many experiences you have just by going out and you know, trusting yourself and just, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's very scary for other people. Like,
Definitely. It's not to say that I wasn't afraid myself, of course, you know.
No,
like,
but just being able to do it, I think, takes a certain personality and confidence, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I've been in situations where I know how to speak French because I don't know how to speak French properly, but I know a little bit of French.
Bit. You can get by.
And I know that I feel very insecure and I feel very reluctant to speak around French people, even though, because I am going to sound stupid, you know? It's like, okay, so like you go to Italy, you like fall in love, you come back, you're like struggling with at any point, like, are you thinking like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, what?
All the time.
Like, I'm traveling. I'm like doing this. Like, did your parents ever express any worry about it?
Every day, Gabo. Still to this day. It's funny. My parents just told me, they're like, yeah, we were in San Francisco and we saw this, like, just truly like bum, like we just felt so bad, just totally, it's like we're like, we better be careful, otherwise Cody might be like that.
And this is coming from your mom and your dad.
Yeah. They're worried about me all the time. They're extremely caring, you know. So my mom is a little bit more like worried for me and more like, wait, she's a mom, right? So she's like, oh, do this, blah, blah, this. My dad knows who I am and how I am and has seen me, you know, be in places by myself and sort of like how I make things work, you know. And so he's just very like, do what you got to do, dude, you know, like we're fine where we are. You don't need to be here. Like if you want to go and do something, like I'm very travel oriented. I'd like to be everywhere in the world, right? Would be ideal. I'd be ideally to find a job where I can sort of help build things for others in all parts of the world, right? That would be cool. But my dad is much more, it's been like, yeah, man, you can do this. And of course, my parents, though, always, especially my mom, is more like, you know, you spent all that time, all the money, like studying at this school, and you're not like working as an architect, you know, like, obviously that brings up a lot of worry. It's like, hey, we invested a lot in you, and which puts a lot of pressure on me, you know, because it's like, man, you guys have spent so much time and effort, like, giving me what I have, you know, and I feel like I haven't given you guys back what you deserve out of it. You know, I haven't given you your return for it, you know. Yeah. So naturally, it's very heavy.
Make them feel that you feel gratitude.
That they invested, yeah, gratitude, and that their investment was a good investment, you know.
Okay. So you feel this semi-pressure, although your dad's more like, do what you gotta do. Your mom, you feel like your mom is much more like, listen, like why don't you take yourself a little bit more seriously? Like, put time and effort in the degree that you got. Your parents, in some way, they're just saying like, we just want you to be happy. You know, we just want you to do well. Right. So the pressure is more about go find what you love.
Exactly.
To do.
Exactly, and I think that's what it's been more so lately, is they've been doing a good job of, you know, what is it you want to do? You know, go out and do that. Like, we know you're Cody. You don't do anything you don't want to.
Right.
So go out and just fucking do it, you know? Go out and do it, which
Mhm.
I really appreciate. And where do I want to invest myself? And then, like, a part of me is afraid of, like, oh, I don't want to invest myself into this because what if I don't like it? Well, you know what? That's okay.
Right.
It's okay if you don't like it, but you don't know until you do it, right?
Mhm.
So now it's about being proactive about what it is that I want to fulfill in my life. Because I like I do like carpentry, handyman stuff. I go to people's houses. I fix things. I fix things at bars, other commercial areas. And I don't feel as fulfilled because what am I doing this for? I'm providing for someone just to ruin or not respect to be in the end anyways, and
Mhm.
just refixing, like, especially at a bar. It's like, oh, you fixed this, you did this, you made this table. Oh, it just got fucked up because a bunch of drunk people like jumped on it for whatever reason, or like
Right.
spilled alcohol like all over it. Like, of course, that's a bar. It's gonna happen,
Mhm.
So that to me wasn't providing anything for people that needed it, right?
Okay.
So that is sort of like sitting hard within me, but at the same time, I still like to use those skills, practice those skills, and keep myself sort of focused on me doing what I'm doing, right? I like building, so when I'm gonna get to build things, I get to stay in this zone, right? Whether it's my form of escape, right? It's my form of
But
sort of
here's the thing. To me, when we are asked these questions, sometimes there's this pressure, like this the pressure that comes from maybe not at the specific moment, but society puts pressure on us to like why are millennials
provide or produce
yeah
or
provide, produce, help back, do this, like you have to have a job, if not you're a nobody, or like you have to have a respectable job, and like what does that even mean?
right,
There's all these things that if you're 30 and don't know what you're doing, then you might be a lost cause.
right,
Things like this that put a lot of pressure on us, right?
Mhm.
So when somebody asks us what do we want to do, I feel like we feel this pressure, this
Definitely.
from society, and we start to think of these we start to think of these answers as we were answering, like, as a public statement,
You're right, right.
just like, I want to be the president of the United States,
Yeah.
and I want to help as most people as I can,
Right.
and I want to be a righteous person,
Yeah.
and so, like, but is that really us, like,
Right.
that's my, like, so the question I ask, like, do you think this PR version of yourself is answering that question, or do you really think that, like, going through building, like, as a builder, is what you want to do?
Yeah, I don't think it's fully the building, I think it's I agree with you. I need social interaction. I need to talk to people. I need to spend time with them regardless, and I think a lot of those things, like, especially that I'm touching on, is more like community based, right? It's more about, like, knowing the people and sort of
Right, but what I'm
continuing, and I
trying to
think-
get to is that it's also okay if you say, I just want to play video games for, like,
Oh, totally.
or like,
Well, this is my game, right?
Right.
It's not me playing anything for anyone else. It's me playing for me, right? These are the things that I want for myself,
Right.
And the things, even if I'm providing for other people, it's not fulfilling to them. It's fulfilling to me, first and foremost.
So
you
so definitely you think that helping other people is what's gonna make you the most happy.
I
Like,
think it'll be most
at a-
rewarding. Yeah,
okay.
it'll fulfill me in ways that I can't be fulfilled in.
I see.
by
So, like,
anything else.
your challenge right now is, like,
Figuring out how to do that.
how to do that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
I think I've had a lot of help, like, with this question, with this idea, with understanding my life based on the people I've come across. Like, number one right now is, like, you're truly the only one that asked me these questions in depth, right?
Right.
Right.
I'm
Most
actually
people-
caring
yeah,
about it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You actually make me think about it, right? Normally, I get asked this, I'm like, I don't want to think about it. Don't ask me. I don't want to talk about it. Very, very simply. But I think you and her have provided, like, a lot for me in these past, couple months of just me wanting to find myself, right? And I think you guys have been very supportive in this. And
So what? So right now you're also in kind of like this moment where things are about to change,
Yeah.
and and I don't I know you're gonna be fine, but at the same time, I definitely worry about how you perhaps approach something sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Like as a best friend, like
Yeah, yeah.
I want you to do good, and so like what? So now, tell us about your plans, like for this year, like because they're also kind of like fuck everything. I'm starting over again.
It seems to be a common trend in my life, I guess. So right now I'll be well in like 5 days after I leave New York. I'm gonna be going to LA to live with my girlfriend. Um, Now it's not a guaranteed plan or anything. We're not worried or gonna worry about things because we both love each other and then we know that it's gonna we'll make it work. But I am going to go search for jobs out in LA in order to stay with her, right? Maybe it doesn't work out like that. Maybe we end up moving somewhere completely different in the world, and finding another job or going somewhere else or coming to Chicago or whatever it may be. But I don't really have a plan, and definitely kills my girlfriend because she's much more of a planner. And she was like, "Oh, what about this? What are we going to do?" She's more of the think tank, the pre-think tank.
I got you.
And I'm more of like, I don't care. Whatever we're gonna do, we're gonna be happy with doing it. That's my goal, is to be happy with doing what I'm doing, right? So I can find something, still be satisfied, even if it's not the exact job I need, but it'll hold me over in order to get on my feet, right? But focusing on what it is I want to do for myself, I think this bit of time of me being in LA jobless will give me a little bit of time for me to think about exactly what it is I want to focus on. Like, how do I want to rework my resume? How do I want to work myself, my image to provide for someone else right now? And I think I'll get a little bit of time to do that, especially in space where I'm not caring about anyone else besides my girlfriend, but she's more of a catalyst for these thoughts as opposed to to putting me down.
Which is one of the things that, I mean, I don't want to say worries me. It's just I don't want you to do anything for the wrong reasons.
Of course
because
not.
I feel that I've kind of done things for the wrong reasons, and or like I'm just trying to fulfill expectations that weren't really mine. That in a way that landed me in somewhere that I'm like, oh wait, I have to think twice. Do I want to be here?
Right.
And I can understand how a girlfriend can ignite this fire, on your butt, and push you to do something good and better, and that's cool. But again, like, my advice to you would be, don't fall back on this idea that you have to be the PR version of yourself. Yeah, you have to be this guy who publicly is, accepted by society. It's like, oh yeah, no, I went to school and got a job and I did my thing, and
right.
Nobody can look at me weird because I did the things that I needed to do.
Right.
And that's kind of like what I'm afraid of for me and for you and for a lot of people that come out of school, and and fuels basically the economy, but nobody gets anything out of it.
Right. But you shouldn't feel. I appreciate your concern, but you don't have to feel overly, because you know me, right?
Right.
I know no matter what.
I know
yeah,
you're gonna
exactly.
be fine. I know you're gonna blow with the wind.
And if
eventually
I don't like whatever I'm doing, then I'll stop being there.
Right. Like what I want for you is to like find that thing that really drives you, and like be like that you're excited and you're like, Gabo, dude, I was working on this shit and it's just really exciting, and I wanted to tell you because I'm just excited about it, and in school when you find that drive, and because you really found an idea cool about your project when you were in architecture school, and then you find yourself that you're really focused on it, and that just made the project better.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
just
yeah.
because you found this thing that was interesting to you about it, and that's a struggle that I want for you. You know,
Mhm.
like that the challenge, to find that challenge thing, to find that thing that challenges you, but also drives your passions.
Right.
And because you know, I just when I find myself doing something like this, like the podcast, you know, and I'm like, dude, let's do an episode, and you're like, dude, I don't know if I want to. I'm like, dude, you're gonna find it. It's gonna be fun. Like, we're gonna, you know, we're just gonna have fun.
Like, I gotta fucking sit in front of a camera talking to a fucking microphone. God damn it.
But it's mine, so like you're excited for me. And,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and it's something that I'm putting my heart into it. So I want that for you as well.
Mhm.
And I really hope that like you find it, and because I think you're an interesting person, and in many ways, like you've out succeeded a lot of people that
In some ways.
in-
And in
right.
some ways.
Well,
Total failure.
in the eyes of society, maybe not so much, but
Right, right.
but I think in my eyes, you know, like you've been very true to yourself,
Mhm.
and that's something that like you've managed to survive, you know, while
It's true.
also
Surviving, but not thriving.
but also yeah, but that the opposite could be true, where like you're
True.
being depressed and like anxious, and
Yeah.
you know, and you're not in that space, so
Mhm.
in a way that's good for you, you know.
Mhm.
I just want from you to here in 5 years to have a vision, you know, like where do I want to be, and really like what do like, even if your shit is about painting little models of
Mhm.
you know, Zombicide, and that's what you want to do, even if you don't make any money whatsoever, but you're like, fuck, I will look at this, and like I spent like 100 hours on this.
Yeah,
and,
right.
and you're just like so fucking drunk by it that
Right, right.
that you don't even realize like you didn't sleep for like 3 hours.
Yeah.
That's what I want out of myself, for
Mhm.
myself, and obviously that's what I want for the people that I love,
Mhm.
and that's you. So I really hope that like 5 years from now, you know, like we can get to do this again, and we can see, you know, like it'll be fun to look back at
That'll be
this.
very interesting
Yeah,
to
and
see.
see, and see, like, dude, I was such an idiot back then. Like, look at how I'm speaking, you know, and it'll be cool, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, you know, to
Yep.
capture this moment in time. We're basically at the end right now, bro, and
Bro, we've just begun.
I think this was cool. This was really cool, because I'm glad I got to hear you say a lot of the things that you said, and like I said, I love you and respect you, and you are a person that has influenced me to become better. And if I may say, like, the things that I think I admire from you were, like, when we were friends, is your just brutal honesty. That was
Mhm.
one of the things, and then the other one is like you're always kind of confident in doing the things that just doing things, even if you're not necessarily the most apt.
Mhm.
You carry yourself with a lot of confidence, and I think that's almost like 50% of the way there, you know.
Right.
Like just being able to not be insecure about it, to
Mhm.
not think twice about it, and in some sense that's maybe why you've been so successful with like getting girls, and you know, or like getting relationships.
It definitely
because-
helps.
because we didn't talk about it, but that's something that I feel when you focus on being successful, you know, you forget about like the relationships that you can build with people.
Mhm.
And it's not just about your work, but it's also about like people, right?
Right.
And somebody that may be like, I don't, well, obviously if you see somebody like Jeff Bezos that already has a wife, but somebody that's maybe struggling and going up may not have time to do this, right? May not
Mhm.
have time to build these skills, and that's also a way that I think that you've managed to be successful, is like building these relationships that you think are going to help you in the future, you know. And it's looking at you like as a best friend, like growing up with you, it was it really helped me almost like mirror those things.
Mhm.
So, and I could almost feel like your dad was my dad at some point, you know,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
because of it.
He's a very fatherly figure to many, I'm sure. So.
Yeah. So I'm really happy that you did this, bro, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Gabo.
For coming here.
Enjoyed it much more than you thought I would.
I knew we were going to enjoy it. It was just like getting to do it,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
getting to like, I want to play games, but I guess Gabo wants to.
Well, hey, guess what? Now we can play games.
Yeah, exactly. Now we can. Let's go play some Tarkov. And thanks everybody for tuning in. I love everybody that listened to this. This has been the Player versus Live podcast, Cody edition, and I will see you guys in another planet. Peace out.
See ya.